hadn't thought about the problem until we lost Carrie. And then you realize this is a problem. And it's not just in Marshall, Texas. This is everywhere. But we've been working with other members of Congress. We have a 911 caucus in Congress. People are becoming aware.
As Americans, we're all trained to do one thing as children, have been since I was a child, and that is, if you need help, call 911. When a 9-year-old little girl is mature enough and brave enough to make that call in that kind of a situation, she needs to be answered. I've stayed in hotels that have no instructions whatsoever on how to dial for help. I've stayed in hotels that say dial 9, dial an 8, call the front desk, which I certainly hope the person behind that desk is trained in emergency care or knows how to deliver a baby, knows the signs of a stroke. If they're not down the hall throwing the Coke machine, to be able to answer the phone to begin with. I even stayed in a hotel that said, for emergency, dial 6821. No idea who answers that, don't really want to know. That's why I started a petition on December 17th of 2013, and on change.org, being the big bad dad that I felt I was going to shoot for 100 signatures and then march into my congressman's office and show him the massive support that I had for making this change. This morning I checked, and it's halfway between 468,000 and 469,000 and counting as we go. Making this change just makes sense. It's easy to do with technology, as Congressman said. And in order to prevent tragedies like this from happening, this change needs to take effect as soon as possible. And
our nation's third president, Thomas Jefferson, once said that one man with courage makes a majority. Today we are gathered here in Marshall, Texas, because of one such man. As a father myself, I can't imagine what it would be like to lose one of my children. As you've heard, Hank Hunt knows that pain. 13 months ago, as he observed, his daughter Carrie was killed by her estranged husband in a hotel room not far from here. And as he said, Hank's 9-year-old granddaughter was in the room and tried to save her mother by dialing 911. The call just didn't go through. So she tried dialing 911 again, and again, and again. Each time, the same result. She was never able to reach anyone who could help because, as we now know, the hotel's phone system required her first to use an access code, number 9, before dialing 911. And had the hotel system been configured properly, her 911 call would have been answered by a public servant working in this very building, someone who could have helped in Carrie's moment of need. Dialing 911 must always work. And this is especially true when it comes to our kids. My colleague, Commissioner Rosenworcel at the FCC, says that the first number that she taught her children was 911. And I bet that there are millions of parents across the United States who did the same thing. But when we teach our children to call for help, we don't need to tell them that in some places they need to dial 911, in others they need to dial 8-911, yet more they need to dial 9-911. No, we all teach them that the only number they need is 911, everywhere and every time. So almost 1 year ago, I started an inquiry into the use of multi-line telephone systems, or MLTS, for 911 dialing. Working with our nation's lodging industry and MLTS manufacturers and vendors, we quickly determined that what happened with the phone system here in Marshall was not an anomaly. It was indicative of a widespread problem across this country. Moreover, most MLTS vendors reported that they didn't ship all of their products with a default setting allowing for direct dialing of 911. This meant that the problem extended well beyond hotels and tens of thousands of other large buildings across our country, schools, offices, what have you. The telephone system would fail Americans when they needed it the most. At the beginning of 2014, none of our nation's largest hotel chains had brand standards requiring their franchise properties to allow direct access to 911. And this might explain why franchise locations lag behind their owned and managed counterparts when it came to direct dialing. But today I'm pleased to report Carlson, Hilton, La Quinta, Marriott, Motel 6, and Starwood have adopted such brand standards. These companies are now in the process of making sure that their franchise locations come into compliance with these new brand standards. And their work is paying off. But our efforts haven't been limited to these large hotel chains. AHLA has been working with all of the association's 19,790 member properties to move the ball forward on this issue. It's been explaining to them how to upgrade phone systems to enable direct 911 dialing and educating them on the importance of getting this done before another tragedy strikes. And we also need the cooperation of vendors to make sure that the phone systems that already have been installed throughout this country are configured properly. For instance, Avaya has recommended that its customers verify that their systems allow 911 dialing. It's also sent a product support notice to all of its customers, listing all the checkup services that they can use. Panasonic has issued a service bulletin to their resellers, encouraging them to tell customers to program their systems for direct 911 dialing. And some MLTS vendors and distributors have been offering free or low-cost ways for property owners to modify their existing systems and ensure that direct 911 dialing is enabled. The bottom line is that we never know where and when an emergency is going to occur. It could happen tomorrow in a Marshall, Texas hotel room. It could happen next week in an office building or a school. But we do know that when disaster strikes, life and death may hang in the balance. There's a pretty good chance that someone's going to pick up a phone and dial 911. And that call needs to reach emergency personnel.